When you think of London transport, the black cab, red double-decker bus and tube roundel spring to mind. But one of the most controversial methods of traversing the city is often overlooked. The rickshaw. Unregulated and unlicensed, they are often labelled a menace by cab drivers, local MPs and even the Mayor of London. But are they a dangerous nuisance or just a fun way to see the city?
I got into it in 2000 and started riding in 2001. I was working at the time as a manager in a bank and a cash handling centre, so that wasn't a huge fun activity. Quit my job and became a rickshaw rat.
Friedel Schroeder is a rickshaw driver and director of Bugs, the oldest and largest pedicab operator in London.
I rode with cowboys for about 6 years, which means that there are plenty of them out there. And then actually came across Bugs, which was a social enterprise, not for profit, and realized that actually what they were doing and the way I see the pedicabs are the same. Bugs basically sort of were doing things which were kind of right, so they have a best practice policy, so the bike needs to be of the highest standard, so it's made in the UK. It is to a certain standard, so the tyres are known grade, the spokes are known grade, there's a qualified instructor, there's a qualified mechanic.
Despite this, many argue that there is no place for pedicabs on London streets. Leading the charge against rickshaws is the London Taxi Drivers Association, who complain that the pedicabs are a daily problem for their drivers.
The problem really is that they do look like a lot of fun, especially for kids, people who've had a couple of drinks in a pub and want to go to another pub a few blocks away. They do look like a lot of fun, but there are many examples of them tipping over at relatively low speeds and throwing passengers out. They're not fun, they're inherently dangerous. They tip over, passengers get thrown out, and believe me, it's very, very common. Fortunately, no one's gone under a passing vehicle, but I'm afraid it's going to happen. The other thing that is very relevant, particularly to visitors in London, is the overcharging, because they really do charge a lot of money. I mean, a common 5 or 10 minute job is 30, 40, 50 pounds, and we get lots of reports of more than that, 100. We had one recently of 200 pounds from one of the stores called Selfridges to Harrods store, 200 pounds, and people do pay it, because the problem is they assume that they're licensed. If you see them lining up outside a major store and you're a visitor, you'd say, well, they must be legitimate.
Pedicabs in the last 15 years have been one of the safest forms of transport ever. So you have no fatalities for the last 15 years compared to 10 a week with motorised vehicles in central London. The industry's carboys are nevertheless fairly benign. The vehicle doesn't travel any more than 10 miles an hour, so it's a little bit faster than walking speed, and unless you're really unlucky, there's unlikely to be a fatality in the next few years, touch wood, but normally it does involve other vehicles as well.
The two sides also differ over licensing. Bugs and other rickshaw riders want regulation, taxi drivers want an outright ban.
A street trader's license is a nice way to start. It does mean that you can set a minimum standard for the bike, and you can request insurance and training. So once those initial elements have been fulfilled, then I think you can actually work the industry fairly well. And a lot of people who are currently on the cowboy side wouldn't be interested in getting insurance, and therefore they would make themselves extinct.
The problem is that you can't license a vehicle that's inherently dangerous. It's been put forward, and I support this view, that if someone were to do that, when the first fatality occurs, and it will unfortunately occur, there's been many examples in other countries, important cities in other countries where people have been thrown out and killed. What will happen is there'll be a corporate manslaughter charge against the person who's licensed them. I have no doubt that they'll be abolished one way or the other.
When asked on the street, Londoners had mixed views on rickshaws, but did admit surprise that the vehicles were not licensed.
I'm not too sure how much they cost. They seem pretty expensive, so I don't even approach it in the first place, isn't it? And as well as that, they're normally kind of a foreign thing to do, isn't it? Really.
It's a good idea. There's no pollution. It's a good idea, but it's a fair weather day transport.
Because of the fact of the traffic, the level of traffic that's going on. I mean, anyone on a bike is in danger, and I think you're putting your life at risk to actually try and sit in one of those.
I'm surprised they're still allowed to keep going, really, because London's such a safety kind of place nowadays that, yeah, it's surprising that they're still around.
I think it's nice for the tourists, but if they're regulated, I think you can have a happy medium, then a compromise.
Earlier this year, the Law Commission proposed to the government that local bodies should have the opportunity to licence rickshaws. Whether this is enforced remains to be seen. For now, it seems that these three-wheeled vehicles aren't going to disappear from London streets anytime soon.